It was a cold November evening in our Raleigh, North Carolina home when my husband David stood in our living room and said the words that destroyed everything. I want a divorce. I'm Lorraine Thompson, 38 years old, and I just landed a major promotion at my finance firm after years of grueling work and sacrifice. I thought we were finally getting ahead, that all my hard work was paying off, that we could finally breathe easy and enjoy life a little. But what David said next made my blood run cold and changed everything I thought I knew about our 10-year marriage and the man I'd been sleeping next to all these years. "You never contributed anything to this marriage financially," he said, his voice cold and detached, like he was reading from a script he'd rehearsed in the mirror 100 times before coming home to deliver this devastating blow. I froze, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears like drums. My hands started trembling uncontrollably. 10 years of marriage. 10 years of what I thought was partnership and teamwork, and this is what he thought of me. The words hit like a physical blow to my chest, knocking the air from my lungs and making the room spin around me. I gripped the kitchen counter to steady myself, trying to process what I'd just heard. But then something inside me snapped, like a dam breaking after years of holding back an ocean of resentment and frustration. "Perfect," I said, my voice eerily calm despite the rage building inside me like a volcano about to erupt. "Then the $6,000 I've been paying for your parents' mortgage every single month for the past 5 years stops today, right now, this very moment." David's face went completely white, all the color draining away like someone had pulled a plug. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air on dry land. His eyes went wide with shock and something that looked like genuine fear. The confident, rehearsed demeanor he'd walked in with crumbled in an instant, replaced by panic and disbelief. He clearly hadn't expected me to have this card to play, this nuclear option that would expose everything he'd been hiding from everyone around us. The truth was out, a secret I'd been carrying for 5 long, exhausting years, a burden that had drained my bank account, my energy, my hopes for our future, and apparently my husband's respect for me. What happened next didn't just end my marriage. It exposed a web of lies, manipulation, and betrayal that had been carefully constructed around me, trapping me in a role I never agreed to play, making me the villain in a story where I was actually the victim all along. Want to know how it all unraveled? How a single moment of truth led to discoveries that left everyone in my life absolutely speechless and changed the trajectory of my entire future? Stick around, because this divorce revealed secrets that went deeper than I ever imagined possible. And the journey to freedom was just beginning for me. David and I met in college when we were both young, ambitious, and full of dreams about the future we'd build together. We were both studying business, me in finance with a focus on investment management, him in sales and marketing with big plans to climb the corporate ladder. We'd stay up late in the library, studying together, sharing our hopes and plans for successful careers and a beautiful life. He was charming, funny, attentive, and seemed genuinely supportive of my career ambitions and goals. Most guys back then were intimidated by women who wanted high-powered careers and weren't afraid to work for them, but David said he loved my drive and determination. He said he wanted a partner who was ambitious, not someone who'd be content to stay home and be taken care of. That should have been my first clue that something was off about his intentions. We got married right after graduation in a small, intimate ceremony with close friends and family in attendance. Those first few years were genuinely good. We were a team, or at least that's what I believed at the time. We rented a tiny one-bedroom apartment that barely fit our furniture, worked our first real jobs in the corporate world, and slowly built our lives together brick by brick. David landed a sales position at a mid-sized tech company, and I started as a junior analyst at a prestigious finance firm downtown. Money was tight in those early years, as it is for most young couples just starting out, but we managed to make it work. We split bills fairly, took turns cooking dinner, and dreamed about the house we'd buy someday when we'd saved enough for a down payment. But careers in sales are notoriously unpredictable and stressful. David had good months where commission checks were fat and we could splurge a little on nice dinners or weekend trips, and terrible months where he barely scraped by on his base salary and I had to cover most of our expenses. My income, on the other hand, was steady and grew consistently as I climbed the corporate ladder year after year through hard work and dedication. I didn't mind when I had to cover more of our expenses during his lean months. That's what marriage is supposed to be about, right? Supporting each other through ups and downs. Being there when times get tough. being a team that faces challenges together instead of keeping score of who contributes what. Around our 5th anniversary, we finally achieved a major milestone. We bought our house, a beautiful 3-bedroom colonial in a quiet Raleigh neighborhood with a big backyard, good schools nearby, and friendly neighbors. We were so incredibly proud of this accomplishment, hosting friends for housewarming barbecues, planting flowers in the garden, talking excitedly about the kids we might have someday, and the memories we'd make in this house. I was working longer and longer hours by then, staying late at the office most nights, studying for professional certifications on weekends that would boost my career trajectory and earning potential. Meanwhile, David's sales career continued its unpredictable roller coaster trajectory. Some quarters he'd bring home huge bonuses that let us take vacations or upgrade our furniture. Other quarters he'd barely make his base salary, and I'd quietly cover the shortfall without making him feel bad about it. I threw myself completely into my work with an intensity and focus that surprised even me. Late nights at the office became my new normal. Weekends often included several hours of work or intensive studying for my next certification exam. I was driven by a deep hunger to succeed in my field, to prove myself in a male-dominated industry that didn't always welcome ambitious women, to reach that senior management level where I could finally feel financially secure and respected by my peers. David said he understood my dedication, that he was proud of my accomplishments, that my success was our collective success as a married couple building a future together. But about 5 years ago, right when I was really hitting my stride professionally, and things seemed to be going well for us, everything in our marriage shifted dramatically. David's parents, Ralph and Pamela, hit a serious rough patch financially that would change the entire trajectory of our lives. Ralph had to retire early from his factory job due to health issues. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but chronic problems that made it impossible for him to continue the physically demanding work he'd been doing for 30 years. They'd always lived paycheck to paycheck throughout their lives, never managing to save much for retirement despite working constantly. And suddenly their monthly income dropped by more than half overnight. Within just a few months, they were facing foreclosure on their modest house in the suburbs, the house where David grew up, and where all his childhood memories lived. I'll never forget the night David came to me about the situation, his face drawn with worry and stress, pacing our bedroom like a caged animal with nowhere to go. His hands were shaking slightly, and I could see genuine fear in his eyes that I'd rarely witnessed before. "Babe, I don't know what to do," he said, running his hands through his hair repeatedly in that nervous gesture he had when he was really stressed. "Mom called today crying. They're 2 months behind on the mortgage payment. The bank sent them a foreclosure notice. They're going to lose the house within 90 days if they can't catch up on payments. I don't know how to help them. I don't have that kind of money saved up." My heart immediately went out to him because I genuinely loved David at that point in our marriage and hated seeing him in such distress. I could see the genuine fear and panic in his eyes, fear of his aging parents becoming homeless, of losing that family anchor and all those childhood memories, of feeling like a failure as a son who couldn't protect his parents in their time of need. The weight of that responsibility was crushing him, and I wanted to help ease that burden however I could. "What if we helped them?" I suggested carefully, sitting down on the edge of our bed and reaching for his hand. "Just temporarily, until they get back on their feet and figure out a more permanent solution. Maybe they can downsize to a smaller place eventually, or your dad can find some part-time work that's less physically demanding." David's relief was immediate and overwhelming, almost embarrassingly so. He grabbed both my hands tightly, his eyes suddenly shining with grateful tears. "You'd really do that? Lorraine, you're absolutely amazing. You're literally saving my family from disaster. I don't know what I'd do without you. My parents are going to be so grateful. This is just temporary, I promise. Just until they figure things out." So I started transferring $6,000 every single month directly to Ralph and Pamela's mortgage company to keep them current on their payments. $6,000 every month. Without fail, let that number really sink in for a moment and think about what you could do with that much money. That's $72,000 per year disappearing from our household budget, from my hard-earned paycheck, from the future I'd been working so incredibly hard to build for us. It was a truly massive chunk of my salary, money that could have gone toward our own retirement savings, toward starting our own family and having children, toward the dreams and plans we'd talked about so excitedly in those early years of our marriage when everything seemed possible. But I convinced myself it was temporary, just a short-term bridge to help them through an unexpectedly rough patch in their golden years. Maybe 6 months, I thought optimistically. A year at the absolute most. I rationalized the enormous financial burden by focusing on David's overwhelming gratitude and relief, on the importance of family loyalty and helping those in need, on being the kind of generous person who steps up when help is desperately needed. I'd been raised by parents who believed strongly that family takes care of family no matter what, that you don't turn your back on people who need you, that sacrifice is what love looks like in action. To make the massive monthly payments work within our budget, I had to completely restructure our finances and my entire lifestyle in ways that affected every aspect of my daily life. I cut back on absolutely everything I possibly could. The dinners out at nice restaurants that we used to enjoy together every Friday night? Completely gone. The gym membership I'd been using regularly to manage my work stress and stay healthy? Immediately canceled. New professional clothes for work, even though I was climbing the corporate ladder rapidly and needed to look polished and successful? I started shopping exclusively at discount stores and thrift shops, hunting for deals and wearing the same outfits repeatedly. I stopped getting my hair colored and cut at the salon I'd been going to for years, started cutting coupons obsessively from the Sunday newspaper like my grandmother used to do, bought only generic store brands at the grocery store instead of the name brands I preferred. Every single purchase became an agonizing calculation in my mind. Do we really absolutely need this item? Can I find it cheaper somewhere else or secondhand? Can we wait another month or two before buying it? Our friends started noticing the changes and asking questions. Want to join us for that wine tasting trip to Napa we're planning? They'd ask excitedly. Can't afford it this year. I'd reply with a forced smile that didn't reach my eyes. Saving up for something really big and important. What I didn't tell them, what I couldn't tell anyone, was that the something big was keeping my in-laws' house out of foreclosure while they contributed absolutely nothing. David assured me repeatedly during those early months that his parents were incredibly grateful for my sacrifice, that they talked about me constantly to their friends and neighbors, that they truly appreciated everything I was doing to keep them in their home. They love you so much, he'd say with conviction whenever I looked stressed about money. Mom was literally crying on the phone yesterday, talking about how lucky I am to have married you. They know what you're doing for them, and they'll never forget it. Those words kept me going during the months when I'd look at my dwindling savings account and feel genuine panic rising in my chest about our financial future. But here's what I didn't know at the time, what nobody bothered to tell me. Ralph and Pamela never once thanked me directly in 5 entire years. Not a single phone call to express gratitude. Not one card in the mail. Not a conversation at family dinners where they acknowledged the enormous sacrifice I was making for them month after month. Every single bit of gratitude came filtered through David, secondhand appreciation that I now strongly suspect may have been entirely fabricated to keep me paying without asking too many difficult questions. 5 long, exhausting years passed in this suffocating pattern. 5 years where $6,000 left our joint checking account every single month like clockwork, automatically transferred on the first of each month. The payments never stopped for holidays or emergencies. They never decreased even slightly to give us some breathing room. They never came with any realistic timeline or plan for when they might end. And the gratitude from David that had seemed so genuine at first? That faded dramatically too, at least from his daily behavior. What started as effusive thanks and genuine appreciation became casual acceptance within a year, then entitled expectation, then finally just another bill we paid that was barely worth mentioning in conversation. Meanwhile, I kept pushing myself harder and harder at work, determined to make my sacrifices worthwhile. Those late nights and intensive weekend study sessions eventually paid off with a series of promotions and raises that my younger self would have been incredibly proud of. Junior analyst became senior analyst after 3 years of consistent performance. Senior analyst became team lead after I successfully managed a major client portfolio. Team lead became assistant manager when I brought in the firm's largest new client. Each step up that corporate ladder came with increased responsibility, crushing stress, longer hours, but also significantly more money. Money that disappeared immediately into the bottomless black hole of my in-laws. Mortgage before I could even consider enjoying it, or using it to improve our own lives. I started noticing troubling changes in David during those 5 years, subtle shifts in his behavior and attitude that I initially explained away or deliberately ignored because acknowledging them would mean confronting painful truths. He spent more and more time at his parents' house, often several evenings per week. Sunday dinners there that used to end by 7 p.m. now stretched past midnight regularly. Weekend projects helping his dad with home repairs that should have taken a few hours somehow consumed entire Saturdays. Midweek visits, because his mom needed something minor from the store, became almost daily occurrences. When he finally came home from these extended visits, he seemed emotionally distant, distracted, like his mind and heart were somewhere else entirely, and I was just an inconvenience. When I'd bring up the mortgage payments gently, carefully suggesting maybe we could talk about reducing them slightly, or setting some kind of reasonable end date now that 5 full years had passed, David would get immediately defensive. His face would harden instantly, his jaw would clench, his voice would take on a sharp edge I'd rarely heard before. "They're still struggling financially, Lorraine. Can't you just be supportive for once? Why do you always have to make everything about money? Why are you so obsessed with dollars and cents instead of caring about family?" The conversations would end abruptly, with me feeling intensely guilty and selfish, like I was a terrible person for even bringing up such concerns, like wanting to keep some of my own money made me heartless. Then came the promotion that would ultimately change absolutely everything in my life. Senior manager at my firm, a prestigious title I'd fought tooth and nail to earn over many years. I'd stayed late countless nights when everyone else went home to their families. I'd taken on the most difficult, complex projects that nobody else wanted to touch. I'd proved myself over and over and over again in a field that didn't always welcome or respect ambitious women at the executive level. The promotion came with a gorgeous corner office overlooking the downtown Raleigh skyline, a view of the city that made me feel like all those years of sacrifice and hard work had finally been worth something meaningful. My salary jumped significantly with the promotion. Finally, actual breathing room in our suffocating budget. Finally, the realistic chance to start actually living instead of just barely surviving paycheck to paycheck. I was absolutely ecstatic, practically floating on air, my heart soaring as I drove home to share the incredible news with David. I'd imagined this exact moment during the entire drive home, how genuinely excited he'd be for me, how we'd celebrate together with champagne and a nice dinner. How maybe we could finally take that long postponed vacation to Europe we'd talked about on our honeymoon, or start those home renovations, or just breathe a little easier knowing we had real financial cushion for emergencies. But when I shared my exciting news, bubbling over with enthusiasm and pride, David's reaction was completely, devastatingly flat. "That's great, hon," he said in a monotone voice, without even looking up from his phone, his thumbs still mindlessly scrolling through whatever social media feed had his attention. His voice was emotionless, robotic, like I'd just told him we needed to pick up milk from the grocery store instead of sharing major career news. "That's it?" I asked, my excitement deflating rapidly like a punctured balloon, confusion and hurt washing over me. "David, this is huge for us. I've been working toward this goal for years. Can you at least look at me?" He finally looked up from his phone screen, but there was absolutely no warmth in his eyes, no pride, no joy for my accomplishment. "What exactly do you want me to say, Lorraine? You've always been completely obsessed with your career, above everything else. It's not exactly a surprise that you got another promotion. You practically live at that office instead of being home with me." The comment stung sharply, unexpected and cruel. But I pushed it down, swallowed the hurt, told myself he was just having a particularly bad day at work and didn't mean it. A week later, I suggested enthusiastically that we use some of my significant salary increase to finally tackle those home renovation projects we'd been dreaming about and planning since we first bought the house. Maybe we could finally take that vacation. Maybe we could start trying for kids. David shook his head immediately, not even pretending to consider it. "We can't do any of that. My parents need help with their roof now. There's a major leak, and it's going to cost several thousand to fix it properly before winter." My stomach dropped with that familiar sinking feeling I'd learned to dread. "David, I've been covering their entire mortgage for 5 years. Can't they handle one roof repair? You know they can't afford that. Why are you being so cold and heartless about this? That's when I knew something was fundamentally wrong. The divorce demand came weeks later. You never contributed anything financially, he claimed. When I revealed the $360,000 I'd paid for his parents, his face went white. I canceled every payment that night. Hired a divorce lawyer the next morning. Within weeks, I discovered through his sister Michelle that David had known exactly what he was doing. He'd bragged about me covering his parents' bills. And he'd been having an affair for 8 months with a younger woman named Jessica. The divorce took 6 months. My lawyer destroyed his claims with bank statements proving I'd paid 78% of our household expenses, plus his parents' mortgage. The affair evidence sealed it. I got the house, 65% of assets, no alimony for him. His parents lost their house 4 months after I stopped paying. They moved to a cramped apartment. David moved in with Jessica, who quickly learned he was broke. Last I heard, he's driving for a rideshare service. It's been a year now. That $6,000 per month goes into my retirement now. I reconnected with friends. I'm dating a teacher named Marcus who insists on splitting checks and actually listens when I talk. I ran into David once. He looked exhausted and tried to apologize. I've moved on, I told him. Because I had. My money is mine, my time is mine, my future is mine, and it's pretty damn good. If you're being taken advantage of financially in your marriage, document everything and protect yourself. You deserve better than being someone's ATM.